everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fund Hub Radio. Today, I'm joined by one of our personal event coaches, Liz Baird. And today, we're going to be talking about fundraising incentive ideas, challenges, and examples from real schools. Welcome, Liz. It's so great to have you here today.
Hi.
Awesome. Well, first, I wanted to get started off by just doing a little bit of an intro on you, Liz. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a fundraising coach and your experience with school fundraisers?
Sure. So in 2016, as a fundraising chairperson at my own kids' elementary PTA, we needed to raise funds for a playground. So this would be double what we normally brought in with our walkathon.
Right.
And we knew there were untapped donations if we took our fundraiser online. So we started looking around for an online platform. We teamed up with Get Movin'. I love the experience so much that I started working here.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty much the story.
Yeah.
I have 15 years of experience holding board positions between elementary and middle school PTAs and a high school booster club. So we did double the amount raised, and we did install that playground a few months later.
That's amazing. I love that. And that's the whole point of the fundraisers. I mean, being able to have something that you want to work towards, you have a goal, you need to figure out a unique way to be able to raise those funds and then being able to use those funds for, whatever it is. For your school, it was a playground. For others, maybe technology, teacher appreciation. There's so many different things that schools need funds for. So I think, and I know that you know, that one of the ways that we need to implement in order to get these funds raised is by getting these students excited. And because if we don't get these students excited, they don't go home and tell their parents, etc. So I want to hear a little bit about what role incentives play in success of a school fundraiser, and how do they motivate those students?
Yeah, well, I always tell a chairperson that incentives essentially just have one job. The job of incentives is to motivate students. So anytime a student wants the thing, or they want to participate in something, or even just want to see something happen, then the student is motivated. So they're motivated to tell their parent, to talk to their parent about it, to talk to their friends about it, even within a classroom, just to get excited, to work together with their peers, so they can have the thing, whatever the incentive might be.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, being able to have something to just get them excited, get them motivated, it really does make a difference in these types of, really any fundraiser, but especially the event style, fun run, dance-a-thon, whatever it is that our schools are, doing to raise their funds. So I do know that incentives can look different for every kind of school that we work with. I want to find out from you, because I know that we've experienced this in the past, why individual incentives may not be an option for some schools, and what other challenges you've seen schools face when it relates to incentives.
Yeah, sure. So sometimes we work with schools that don't do individual incentives. This can really be for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's just the way that it could just be the school rules. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just don't have. Maybe they just have a rule where they don't allow that. It could be that they want to provide more equality for students. Maybe they want to be more sensitive to financial inequalities among families. Maybe they want to be more inclusive among their students and among their classrooms, and sometimes even among the teachers. And so ultimately, I don't find it to be a huge obstacle if a school decides or has a rule that they don't do individual incentives. There's plenty of ways to motivate your students without individual incentives. That's not to say it's not great if you're a school that does reward students individually, but if you don't, there's plenty of ways to motivate your students. Without that individual incentive. So you can motivate the groups, you can reward the groups, you can reward the classrooms, you can reward the grade levels, the school level, just in a multitude of ways.
Yeah, I think that's really good points. I think that when it comes to incentives, it can be overwhelming, or especially if you're a school that really does strive for that, equality of all students, and maybe not all students have families that are equipped to be able to participate financially in the fundraiser. So finding different ways, maybe registration incentives. I know we're going to kind of go a little bit deeper into the different types of incentives a little bit later in the episode, but just being able to find those ways to create that inclusivity. And like you said, classroom incentives, school-wide incentives, even maybe creating different challenges out of the fundraiser that aren't financially related. I know that in an episode previous to this, we were talking about 50 state challenges and being able to reward the school for doing things like that, and just finding different ways to incentivize these students, even if it's not only financially.
Yeah, for sure.
So really good points on all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about some examples of how schools have successfully used classroom, grade level, or whole school incentives instead of individual rewards. I know I just kind of mentioned one about the 50 state challenges, but let's hear from you, from your experience, what you see with that.
It's kind of all wrapped together. So anytime you reward the group, whether or not it's the class, the grade level, the whole school, it can be inclusive. It includes all students in that group. Really, regardless of their parents' ability or sometimes just their willingness to participate.
Yeah.
We always know we're not always going to have all families or all parents participating. FundHub, of course, has a full report system that provides multiple statistics for classrooms, grade levels, and the whole school. So what that does is allow you the opportunity to provide rewards at those levels, classroom level, grade level, school, just for different things. So registration, participation. So lots of schools will offer rewards for percentage to goal. That could be 50% to goal, 100, 150. So you can reward your classrooms, your grade levels, your whole school, those whole groups to include the entire group as you go. That can really be motivating. It can create a little competition among your classrooms, a little competition among your grade level, or you can reward the whole school, just with those different types of parties. Some schools will do a traveling trophy for the grade level in the lead. We see the Golden Sneaker Award that travels from class to class. The class that wins it in the end, they get to keep it, until the entire next year. If you want to talk about bringing out that super competition among the teacher, that's it. That's number one.
Yeah.
I even love those school-wide incentives. Lots of schools will do the spirit days, the dress-up days when schools reach those different increments.
Yes.
Those are super fun. Keep it simple. Nothing super fancy that the parents have to do, but just super fun things. Silly sock day, crazy hat day, stuff like that. But I even like easy things like music in the lunchroom, popsicles, things like that. Super, super cheap, sometimes free, things like that the school can reward the entire groups. Those can be broken down to the classroom or the grade level, or they can include the whole school.
Yeah, I actually feel I've definitely touched on this in some previous episodes when we're talking to the actual chair people at the schools, that it's sometimes those experience-based incentives and those group incentives that really are the most exciting. I mean, what third grader or second grader isn't like, oh, let's go, if you're involving the principal, how exciting is it to go home and tell your mom, if our school reaches our whole goal, we can turn our principal into a human Sunday. Or if my classroom hits the goal, we're going to get our golden sneaker. I mean, it's just about getting them to get excited and go home and tell mom and dad, hey, and that's how you're going to increase that participation and registration. So really good points there.
And those experience-based incentives that are free or almost free, another great thing about those is they can be repeated year after year, because sometimes I talk to a chairperson, the chairperson will say, help us come up with some new incentives. We're kind of bored. And I always ask the chairperson, are you bored or are the students bored? Because the answer is never, the students are never bored. The students always look forward to those experience-based incentives year after year. They've done it one year, or maybe they didn't earn it if their class didn't earn it and they won it the next year. Or if they did have it, they won it again. That school that I helped raise money for a playground, they have this fun incentive for their classrooms that reach goal. It's called a water blast party, where they get those pencil water shooters, those long pencil water shooters from the dollar store. And they sit out along the bus loop. All classes sit out along the bus loop, and the admin team runs up and down the sidewalk while the classes shoot them with water.
I love that.
the admin team. And they do this, they pray that it's a warm day. But usually the admin team is dressed in, raincoats and, trash bags as shields, and
Yeah.
they just let the students blast them with water, and it's very inexpensive. Sometimes they have to replace those water shooters if students get too crazy with them. They just fill buckets with water, and it's just one afternoon, and those students want that same incentive year after year after year. I don't have kids that go there anymore because my kids have grown up, but it's just something that they repeat year after year. So that's another great thing about those incentives.
That's so funny that you say that too, because right before you gave that example, I was about to say, yeah, even if the chairperson wants to tweak something or, maybe they're bored, there's always something new that you can cover a adult employee at the school in, like, whether it's Sunday stuff, whether it's water, whether it's slime, it's just like shaving cream, whatever it is, there's always something new that you could, even if it's not changing the incentive completely, it's tweaking it so that it raises that bit of excitement,
For sure.
So yeah, I love that example that you just had with the water guns. That's so great.
For sure.
Let's talk about a little bit what back pocket incentives are and how schools can effectively use those.
Sure. So back pocket incentives are things that you have in mind to use, and maybe even you're going to use them, but you don't announce those right away. So, for example, you might have like your admin team. They might agree to do a video of like the gritty on TikTok as a funny reward for maybe a stretch goal.
Yeah.
Because you've set your goals, you're probably going to reach it. And when you do, you're going to reach into your back pocket and thank your parents for their generosity and tell them, thank you for your generosity. Now that we've reached our original goal, we have a stretch goal of X. And if we do, we can tell them what you can provide with the stretch goal funds, and tell them what the reward will be. So the reward is that back pocket incentive. So that back pocket incentive is something you kind of keep in your back pocket. You know what it is, you have it in mind, but you don't announce it right away. So
that's
since you're kind of keeping it a secret, it brings a little bit of excitement.
Yeah, hype.
Yeah, a little bit of hype. But as a chairperson, most chairpersons sort of like to know the plan. So they don't like surprises, right?
Right. Yeah. But those kids do, and that'll get them,
Exactly.
The stretch goal, if you hit your goal of 20,000 and you're like, okay, we still got a week left. Let's, raise 5,000 more. And here's the prize that we didn't tell you about, but now we can. So that's really, really cool. I love that. Could you share, I know we talked a little bit about your school that you helped with before working with Get Moving with the the water shooter party, but do you have another standout example that you could share from real schools that implemented creative fundraising incentives, and what were the outcomes of those schools?
Some of the most creative incentives are just the fun things that the principal or admin team, other fun teachers do. Of course, they have to be up for it, but there's always someone in the school, that's up for it, someone that the students love. We do have this one school that does a Shamrock theme event every year, and the principal's amazing, always willing to do fun things. One year he dyed his beard in rainbow colors.
I love that.
Yes, he'll dress as a leprechaun and walk on stilts. He sings karaoke during the pickup line. So fun. Everyone, students, hilarious. Teachers, parents, even the community is paying attention to what's going on. He's basically a celebrity. And again, I know I'm kind of a broken record here, but things like this are free.
Right. No.
And they create
hype.
And they create hype. So you can't go wrong with things like that. Essentially, the effect of these creative incentives is just creating that hype, really getting everyone involved. Everyone knows it's fun. Not to say it takes your mind off the fundraiser, but it really adds to the fundraiser being more of an event, more of community involvement, more of the fact that we're all in this together for a greater purpose.
Yeah. And it's really that chain reaction, right? I mean, if you introduce the incentives to the students, that's what gets them to go home, tell mom and dad, gets mom and dad to register, possibly donate. And even if they can't donate, sharing that webpage so that way friends and family can donate. I mean, I know we've said it before, but sharing alone, it creates that, you're 5 times more likely to hit your goal if you are sharing that fundraising student webpage. So, it's a chain reaction. Those incentives are what drive that participation, drive the registration. So like you said, I mean, that's having those cool incentives and being able to have something unique each year or tweaking it is really what's going to keep the hype with those students and get them to overall raise money for your school.
And essentially probably another podcast entirely, but part of building community. It's really, part of building community, which is a portion of your fundraiser, but really overall a portion of what the parent group is trying to do the entire school year.
Totally. So moving on a little bit to the future, what do you think, or how do you see the landscape of school fundraising and incentives evolving in the near future? Something that you said that I hadn't even really occurred to me just a few minutes ago was that you've heard of a school on TikTok doing the gritty as an incentive. I mean, that's, I think, an example of something and how we can see incentives evolving already. I mean, using social media as an incentive, I mean, that's hilarious. I hadn't even thought of that. But, aside from social media, I mean, if that's one of your points, feel free to bring that up too. But that was something you said where I was like, oh, wow, that's something I hadn't heard of.
Yeah, well, I think the landscape of school fundraising is really just constantly changing. It's, influenced obviously by technology, clearly, where we're sitting right now. Economic conditions, of course, that's constantly fluctuating. Demographics, and of course, trends. Donors really demand transparency. Parent groups know this. Accountability from organizations they support. Schools want to demonstrate the impact of their fundraising efforts. They should be transparent about how the funds are used. When we talk to schools, they usually struggle with how to get parent volunteers. One of the things, and participation. So one of the things that we always encourage them to do is let their parents know where the funds are going. Constantly tell them the programs and the things that they provide, that their students reap the benefits of throughout the year, because sometimes when parents can see the direct impact of the fundraising, they're more likely to participate. So I feel like incentives will evolve to meet those ever-changing needs of students and also of teachers, as well as be a good fit for the volunteer. So obviously, school funding is always going to fall short when it comes to teachers, students, and also the volunteers. So there's always going to be funding needs. It's one of the reasons why we do what we do and why we help volunteers raise the funds and keep as much as possible. There's always going to be, funding needs for teachers. I feel like the incentives, have to fit the volunteer role. They have to fit into what the volunteer can handle. They need to, again, going back to the very beginning of our conversation, they have to motivate the student as well.
Yeah, I think a good thing that you hit on there was that transparency. I think that as technology continues to evolve in the world in general and not just fundraising, it's you're seeing people want more and more transparency. They want to know where their email address is going, just so many different things. As technology changes, you need to be able to adapt to it, and it's going to require more needs from our customers and fundraising in general. So I think those were really that was a really good thing to hit on, as things evolve, and technology being that driving force of the evolution is a really good thing to stay on top of. And at Get Movement Fundraising, we strive for that transparency. We strive for being able to evolve with the technology. So that was a really good point that you hit on there. But Liz, I mean, we are already getting to the end of the episode here. I can't believe it. I guess they say time flies by when you're having fun. I mean, how can you not have fun talking about incentives and prizes? So as we wrap up here, I just kind of wanted to get your final key takeaways that you want to leave with our listeners and viewers who are looking to elevate their next school fundraiser.
Well, I think overall, the key to elevating your fundraiser is ultimately just to implement strategies to maximize your engagement, the participation, and in the end, therefore the funds raised. I know that we're experts in guiding schools how to do this. I always just, tell potential schools, just reach out to us for a conversation. Of course, we're going to tell you that Fund Hub is the best, but, of course we're going to tell you that, right?
Yes.
But more than that, we will consult with you on how to execute things, for your school, for your fundraiser, for your school year, how to lay it out. One of my favorite things to do is to make a point to a school. Let's have a great fundraiser. Let's raise the most money you can with one fundraiser. And then the rest of the school year, what if you just had events? What if you just had events where you invited your families and you didn't have to charge them for every little thing, that came around? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
This probably goes along with your mission as well. So I really love to walk through that with a school. I really love to basically have a short consultation, more or less, with a school, show them why Fund Hub is the best, and kind of consult with them for the rest of their school year, what they can do with the funds. So
I think that's a really great way of looking at it.
Yeah. And ultimately, we'll both learn something, even from just a short conversation.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time away from your super busy day today.
It was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad you had a good time. I always love talking about incentive ideas. That's one of my favorite parts of the podcast in general, is just learning about how different schools do it. So thank you again. And thank you to our listeners and viewers for coming back for another episode of Fund Hub Radio. We are always eager to give you guys different tips, tricks, and tools on how to have a successful fundraising event. So we will see you guys next time on the next episode of Fund Hub Radio. And until then, we'll see you later. Bye.